is a meeting of the Stratford Town Council on September 11th, 2017. I call this meeting to order. It is my turn to do the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. It has been 16 years since the 9/11 attacks of 2001. So we pray for having the strength to, and we're thankful for having the strength to get through that period. We pray for a continued togetherness of the nation. We pray in the memory of those who died on 9/11 and those who died afterwards from the health effects. We pray for the first responders and their families also. We pray for the families who suffered from 9/11 and the ripple effects that their losses will have on future generations to come. This has also been a time in the past few weeks of flooding, hurricanes, and we realize the importance of municipal government. So I pray that our municipal government is strong. We pray for the people of Texas, Florida, and the South. We pray that people will have the wisdom and togetherness to get through that period and their nation comes together. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't realize.
Oh, really?
The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
Madam
Is there a
Chairman?
motion to approve the minutes?
Madam
Mr.
Chairman,
Chase?
I move we approve the minutes.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Chase, seconded by Ms. Antezo. Is there any discussion of the minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Manis?
in the minutes from the last meeting, there was a reappointment of an alternate onto the Arts Commission. Teresa Piccolo, when she was first appointed to the Arts Commission way back, she was in the process of changing her name. Because she has since entered school and has a number of certificates in her name and things like that, she was advised to not change her name at this point. So her name remains Manis. It is not Teresa Piccolo. So that should be corrected. She's on the voter rolls as Teresa Manis. So
Okay, are there any other corrections to the minutes that need to happen? Okay, all in favor of that correction to the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I abstain. I was not present at the meeting. So all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And again, I abstain. I was not present. Okay, ceremonial presentations and awards. I just want to note at this point that the mayor will be coming late. He is at a 9/11 ceremony presently. Okay, so there being none, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is council members' response to comments from public forum. Mr. Farrington Posner, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight once again to our council meeting. I appreciate all the speakers coming forward and expressing your concerns to us. Anything we can do, of course, we'll do to address those concerns. I want to go a little different route here tonight. Tomorrow is the primaries, and I know it's been an interesting past few months for everybody here in Stratford. A lot of emotions, a lot of passionate people, door to door and on social media. What I'd like to say is that I respect greatly everybody that has stepped up to run for a political office here in town, especially the volunteer elected offices. It's no easy thing to do. It is a huge personal sacrifice with families and just careers. And I want to I guess what I want to say is I wish everybody that is running tomorrow in the primaries the best of luck. I think that anybody that steps up, regardless if you agree with them or not, I think everybody has the betterment of Stratford in mind, and we may not all share the same vision on how to get there, but I do think everybody's intentions are genuine, and that's why I'd like to wish the following people the best of luck tomorrow in the primaries. I'd like to start with the 1st District with Beth DePonte, John Rich, and Butran, also Mark Scheck and Christopher Pia. In the 2nd District, Neil Sherman. In the 3rd District, Wally Kadim and Dion Francis. In the 4th District, David Hardin and Indiana Susania. In the 5th District, John Dempsey and Greg Can. In the 6th District, Phil Young and Prez Palmer. In the 7th District, Mitzi Antezo and Bill Perillo. And in the 10th District, Matt Light and Tina Manis. Thank you all for stepping up and wanting to serve. At this point, I'm going to end it here. Thank you again for coming out. I appreciate it. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you. I know Mr. Hardin had informed me that he was working late this evening, and he plans on being here late. So I'll move to Mr. Young.
Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Just from a couple of the comments that people made, for Mrs. Masso, I wish we as a town could figure this out. I don't know exactly what the issue is there, but I know that it's being addressed, but I wish we could figure it out so that she's obviously upset. So I urge somebody to please calm her. And for the other stuff, basically, the biggest things I wanted to say was, 9/11 is an important day in our history, and it's something that nobody should ever forget. And we're bringing along a generation now that weren't there then, and we're the ones that need to teach them that. It was a deeply affecting day to me, and I'm sure everybody else here, so it's something we need to pass on to the youth. But other than that, let's get into the meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Ms. Antezo?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I want to thank the people for coming out. I just want to respond to Mr. Yates. I don't know if he's still here, but he mentioned something about a fee for connection to the sewer plant being phased, the payment phased over a number of years. I just would inform him that it's part of the town code that that's permissible. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chase?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out.
Okay, Mr. Llewellyn?
Yeah, continuing with that, I'll also thank everyone for coming out. I know that it seems like our attendance is a little lighter than usual. You know, as this is the 2nd month, I kind of agree with the sentiment that we should look a little further and try to find some sort of feedback or follow-up on the conditions over at the Baldwin Center that Sarah Masso is describing. It's also important to note, you know, 3 of our 8 speakers mentioned 9/11, and you know, I know that a lot of us talk about, you know, the victims from the planes and the courage of the first responders, and you know, I think we should also remember that so many of the victims that day were just regular, you know, blue-collar and white-collar people who were down at the Trade Center, you know, to go to work, and you know, Lower Manhattan's accessible to Stratford by train, and so, you know, with a twist of fate or a stroke of bad luck, theoretically, any of us could have been down there, you know, working, you know, in some capacity. So it's, you know, like Phil was saying, it's a day that's, you know, definitely going to stay with all of us forever. So on to the primaries for tomorrow. I wish all the candidates best of luck, and everybody, the candidates and all the voters themselves, a safe day getting to and from the polls. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Llewellyn. Ms. Manis?
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know Mr. Can is away on vacation with his family, so he is unavailable was a long-time vacation that was planned. I apologize for being late to public forum. I'm nursing a very, very ill dog and a father who's distraught about it. But that's family, and I think the sentiments of what everybody's saying, you know, regarding the primaries, I agree. I just want to echo that. I wish everyone the best of luck, and, you know, this is what democracy's all about. This is what democracy looks like, in my favorite protest words ever. But one of the things that we have to remember is in the midst of all that, we do have traditions and things that, and memorials. 9/11 kind of crept up in the midst of hurricanes and floods and natural disasters and earthquakes. I was like, wow, today's 9/11. And I was a teacher. It was my first year teaching. I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget sitting in the school at St. James, my school, and hoping that if something bad were to happen, at least I'd be in a place where everyone had loved me and I knew. And it was a scary time where everybody thought everything was going to end. And I think that as we go through that as people, we just need to look to each other, and we need to do that a little bit more. I think in all the problems that have been cited here across the board, all the months, you know, people are just reaching out for help. And I think in our world, there's more and more people looking for help. And the people who step up into public service, we carry a lot on our shoulders. And we not only need your support, but we need a chance to, you have to say thank you. Please reach out to somebody, whether it's a fireman, a policeman, your counselor, whoever, and just say thanks. Thanks for being there, because it's not easy. So that's it, and thank you again for coming out on this busy day. I know a lot of people are very busy today, and I look forward to seeing you again next month.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kadim, did you want to have a few words?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see everyone here. Seems like it's been 100 years. It's only been a month, so I miss all you guys and the council. Good to see everyone. Your honor as well. Public forum. I'm sorry I missed that. There's a lot going on just before a primary, so I still love everyone the same. And all the passion you bring when you come here and speak is because you're hurting. And these taxes are killing all of us, so we have to definitely do something about it. And there's no reason why Shakespeare is not open. It should be open, a long time ago. So many things that I've seen since I've been here in this short time could have easily been handled, but they weren't. Instead, other projects was pushed forward. So I hope that everyone recognizes the importance of your vote. Try to get someone that's going to fight for what you need and what you want, and recognize to love the whole town, not just part of the town, because we all make one big town. And it's an extraordinary place. I love being here. I'm coming up almost on 20 years of living here, and I love it here. So I pray that we can all be steadfast and remain the same, treat each other with love and kindness. Been knocking on so many doors. So many people have so many things to say, and because of life, sometimes they're not able to get down, so they'll call their council person and speak for them. And a lot of the things that has been going on with the Board of Ed, a lot of people are not happy with approving all that money. Those projects that needed to be done. I have so many streets. A gentleman on Wooden Road, beautiful house, right on the corner of Wooden and Cedric. His driveway is cracked because of a cherry picker that was put there when they was cutting the tree down, and he said he could never get no satisfaction. And then when you turn the corner on the side of his property, part of the sidewalk is broken up when I know there's CBG money there to fix that. I don't understand what's happening, but I think we need to move forward and try to help everyone in the town. Just want to say thank you for everyone for the opportunity to serve, and I pray that God allow me to be here again. This has really been very important and very enlightening, and the people I've met along the way are so amazing. I love all you people in Stratford. I mean, this has really been extraordinary. Thank you for everything and all things. God have mercy on all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harden?
Once again, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And like Mr. Kadim said, it seemed like it's been a long time. You know, when we talk about this town, we talk about the culture of this town. And when we talk about culture, we talk about the differences. We talk about the opportunity to be polite to each other, to be kind to each other. This year, you know, we had a tough year with the budget, and we had a tough year with making decisions. And let's be honest, we had a tough year as council people getting along and agreeing with each other. But we were able to get some of the tasks that were put aside done. When we became council members, I think a lot of people forget that this town was already upside down. And I think for the 10 of us here, we made some progress. And it may not be the progress that people wanted to see very quickly happen, but it was some progress. And so once again, I'd like to applaud all the councilmen and the chair and the mayor and his staff for at least helping us to move forward for the little bit that we were able to get done. This is a very difficult task to do, and there are people who are willing to do it, and I applaud you for wanting to do it, but it's a difficult task because among this job, we have our own personal lives and we have other things that come across the table, but we're still able to operate and do what the people who voted for us to do. I stand here today as the 4th District Councilman, and I'm very excited about all the things that I've done for my district that were left undone. And there may be some districts that not may be able to stand here and talk about the glory and the reconstruction of their district, but I can stand here and say that I've made a difference in my district. Regardless of people that what they may think or feel about me, and I apologize that you feel that way, but my job is about a purpose and it's about a plan. It's not personal. And I continue to push forward, and I want to continue to finish the things that I've started in my district. And I wish everyone well in their fight and their upcoming election. And again, I want to thank the residents for coming out, voicing their opinions, because those are the things that matter. Positive opinions matter, opinions that actually get work done. There are going to be people who are considered a part of the motley crew. It doesn't matter what you do or how hard you work, they'll still say you've done nothing. But I can sleep at night saying that I've done everything in my heart to make this town to continue to run prosperous and to continue to run as a community with no bullying, with loving each other and being kind. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out, and I'd like to thank all the department heads for doing a great job this year between the fire, police, and EMS, and all the other public service departments for their hard work that they've done during the budget time and providing us with information, and also the attorneys circle here for working hard and the mayor's staff. And I wish everyone well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few words to say. There are 3 items that I think I don't get to speak other than at this point about my thoughts. First, I'd like to thank everybody who came to the conversation on the Shakespeare Theater and on that progress. It was an excellent meeting held at the library on the 7th, I think that was. There were about 55 to 60 people there, and we got to have a very engaging conversation. I thank the administration for being there and laying out the monetary situation, laying out how the arts were a part of economic development now. So I thought that was an excellent meeting. And I don't really read Facebook much anymore, but my husband informed me that there was a comment saying that they didn't really want to like the meeting, but because of the chair, but they really did like the meeting and thought that the work done was very productive. So I look forward to still making even more progress on that, but I finally think that we're on the right path there. The school year has started, so I'm thankful that we have started the school year with a strong, again, another strong education system, and I look forward to seeing the education system improve even more. On the 14th of September, the State House is scheduled to vote on its budget, and right now there are in that budget, Stratford won't be hurt as much as in Governor Malloy's initial proposal, or the revised executive order, where $21.5 million in ECS money was going to be cut from Stratford. After the state has its budget, we are going to have to come back to the table here and get a budget for the town with real numbers from the state. So we really are awaiting what the state will be doing. I know that our state delegation is working very hard to make sure that the pain to Stratford is minimal. So I look forward to seeing that. Right now, I think I look forward to seeing that outcome. If it's a really dismal outcome, I don't look forward to it. But I think that they'll be strong, and I hope that we come out of those negotiations in a good position. I think that's all I'm going to say right now. So let's go on to the next section, which is communication bills, petitions, remonstrances. As far as I know, there are none, which means that Section 5 on page 2 is the mayor's report, committee reports, town attorney's report, and I turn this over to the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, council members. Tonight was a moving night and day. The VFW, as always, does a fantastic job in doing a 9/11 ceremony in memory of those that have lost their lives in that tragic day. And I think the one thing that struck me this morning was it reminded me of actually that day 16 years ago. The weather was pretty similar to what it was today. But again, I'd like to thank Bob Johnson and Dick Kennedy from the Stratford VFW for all their hard work in putting together a successful event. We had Girl Scouts there, Boy Scouts, veterans, and of course our fire, police, EMS were there, also with the Marine Corps Color Guard. And really a great event where the community gets together and pays a tribute and homage not only to those who lost their lives on that tragic day, but also the families that lost loved ones that continue to survive and live with that day, even though it was 16 years ago. So again, kudos to the VFW for keeping that memory alive right here in Stratford. I'd like to thank Chief McGrath and Deputy Chief Gottfried for their support and also being there this evening to help with that memorial. We have our own heroes right here, but thank you for all that you do and the service that you do, but more importantly, running a great fire department here in the town of Stratford. So thank you, Chiefs, for doing that. The Chairwoman had talked about the state budget, and right now we're all over the place. I know they're trying to get a date to meet. Some people have vacations in the legislature, from what I understand. We're hoping that they get a budget by October, if not sometime sooner. It's becoming critical for all the communities in the state, but also the nonprofits and other agencies that depend on state funding. So we're looking forward to the state coming up with a budget, hopefully sooner than later. I'd like to thank the police department in helping solve the crime for the horrible shooting death of Renata Ketchings. There was an arrest made in that incident, and we hope justice is brought to that person. Stratford Army Engine Plant, I had a meeting with Deep last week. Actually, it was a fairly large meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Defense and our delegation. Army Corps gave us an update as far as the testing and what they're trying to do, and coming up with a plan of remediation, but also coming up with an estimate as far as how much needs to be remediated and where. So all interested parties, including the developer, were there up in Hartford. So we look forward to that project moving forward. There is going to be an open house at the fire department this Saturday. All are invited. Have your constituents come. The open house begins at 10 a.m. this Saturday, and we'll go sometime in the mid-afternoon. But I've been to that event. It's a great event. The kids can come up and touch a truck, and they can meet some firefighters and see some demonstrations about how they save lives and protect property in our community. And that is it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
One final thing.
Yeah.
I know most of you have primaries tomorrow. I wish you all luck in your elections. I know two are not running again for the town council, and they're both smiling right now. Alan? But I want to thank, I almost said Representative Chase, Councilman Chase. Thank you for all that you've done in your service to our community, and I hope you enjoy your retirement. And Alan, good luck in your race coming up in November. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. The next section is appointments. Do you have any to report?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And then there are committee reports. Under committee reports, we have under the Arts Commission. Yes, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, I would move during the Arts Commission meeting of August 9th, 2017, the following request was approved: $500 donation to Bonfire on the Beach, an event which has raised money for a charitable organization, the Swim Across the Sound. Resolved that the request of the Arts Commission for a donation of $500 to the Bonfire on the Beach, an event which raised money for Swim Across the Sound, be and is hereby approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Dave Harden.
Seconded by Mr. Harden. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion passes 9-0.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Now the town attorney's report.
Madam Chairman.
Town
I just wonder
attorney's-
at this time if I could ask to suspend the rules to,
I'm sorry, I just called on the town attorney's report.
well, this
I
goes
thought it said
along with the
questions to
committee
the town
report.
attorney.
I'm sorry?
It says
You're out of turn. You weren't recognized.
Well,
We're under
you're
arts,
saying something wrong. It says questions
We
to
aren't-
the town attorney. It didn't say report from the town attorney.
right, we aren't at that section yet. We just
got
did
you.
the Arts
I got you.
Commission, and then
Town
following that comes the town attorney's report.
Excuse me, Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Hodgson?
This is part of the committee report. That's why I'm interrupting at this time.
Okay,
We just did one committee report.
okay, go ahead.
And what I wanted to suspend the rules for, well, the purpose was to approve a tax partnership screening committee recommendation.
Okay,
It's
so
not-
you want to amend the agenda
Yes,
to
please.
take into consideration the tax partnership
Yes.
screening committee? Okay, that's seconded by Ms. Manis. Okay, discussion on amending the agenda? All in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes 9-0. Ms. Zantezo?
All right. I'd like to resolve to approve the tax partnership screening committee recommendation to extend a 2-year abatement for Wag Pants LLC. That was our recommendation.
Okay, is there a
It's a
second?
tax abatement.
Is there a second? First, we need a second, and then we would open discussion.
With a I'll second it with a friendly amendment, because it has to be part of the resolution. It's 100% abatement for 2 years on the improvement value, which equates to about $7,200.
Tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have discussion.
Okay, can you repeat the whole amendment then? It is, I'll try, is to have an abatement for WAG,
It's 2 years.
a 2-year
100%
abatement for
100%
WAG, I'm
abatement.
sorry, I didn't catch the name of the business.
Yeah.
For WAG Pants,
The name of on the application was Wag Pants LLC. However, I noticed that their ad up on the billboard says Wag Central, but the application was for Wag Pants.
so to have a 2-year abatement worth approximately $7,200
Tax per year. I believe
per year, or is it,
it was per year.
yes, Ms. Manis?
I would like to recognize Ms. Fonda, who
I'm sorry, we don't even have a second on this. We haven't
I
even,
seconded it before.
but I wasn't clear on exactly what the resolution is. Can one of you
resolution-
repeat the resolution?
The resolution is for a 2-year, 100% tax abatement based on the recommendation of the tax assessor and those present at the tax abatement committee. It's 100% tax abatement on approximately $7,200 per year for WAG Pants. And Ms. Fonda is willing to explain.
I'm sorry, just the resolution, please, at this point. So that's the resolution.
I think the chair is correct. To keep your record clean, you had a motion made by Ms. Antezo, which was seconded. Ms. Manis made an amendment. You need a second on the amendment, or the person who made the motion needs to withdraw it and do a more.
I'll second the amendment.
Thank you. Now you can discuss.
Okay,
the amendment.
all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
You have to
Aye.
get the discussion on the amendment first. Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry. Okay, then we're having discussion on the amendment. Any questions on this amendment? Yes, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, either to Ms. Manis or Ms. Antezo, why is this being brought up now as an amendment to the agenda? Why wasn't this brought up earlier, or why couldn't have waited to our next council meeting? I.e., what is the rush for doing this tonight?
Okay,
That's my question to either Ms. Manis or Ms. Antezo.
I'll supply part of it, and maybe Tina's also on the committee, can supply another answer. But initially, this company applied well over 6 months ago for the abatement. And since our abatement rules are being rewritten, we had assumed that it would have to wait till afterwards, but their lawyer correctly informed me that since they had applied under the old regulations, they would like it redone under the old regulations without waiting. And our attorney Leclerc agrees with that.
can I
That's why
just,
but it isn't like it's a big hurry up. I mean, they've been waiting for over 6 months.
can I just ask, why was this not provided as an item for the agenda, so we could have this in front of us?
Madam Chair, if I can.
I was asking the chair of the tax abatement committee, who would have been the one providing it to us.
Why wasn't it on the agenda?
Why wasn't it provided
just did it.
to the council clerk or me for the agenda?
I goofed.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay,
I made a mistake. I forgot.
okay, okay.
I haven't had
Okay.
anything else on my
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Manis?
if I can, the meeting that we had was just a day or so ago, and Thursday. And so this committee got together, read through the appointment, looked at all the photos, met with Ms. Fonda, came to this decision. The applicant's attorney was there. It was a whole thing. And so when Ms. Antezo had it, we said, would this be on the, it's too late to get it on the agenda, and she said she would bring it forward. So this just happened Thursday.
Okay.
Based on the attorney's decision that this had to be under the old rules. So that's why. It wouldn't have been made it in time to be on your agendas. It would have had to been amended.
Okay, Mr. Kadim?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Because I'm also on the committee, I knew we've been dealing with this more than one meeting. So it's not new to us, but it may be new to you guys. So,
That's true.
yes, so it's been going on, like she said, over 6 months.
Okay.
And at any time, if you guys ever want to reach out and see what's going on the agenda there and come down to a meeting, it's open. Thank you.
Okay, did you want to have Ms. Fonda called up?
I have
to
another
explain this?
question.
Oh, Mr. Chase?
Yeah, what exactly is the company?
Company-
Something Wag
The
Pants?
company, if I can through the chair, the company is Wag Pants. It's a large facility for dogs. It does kenneling, there's a pool, there's exercise stations. It is a large indoor facility, doggy daycare, grooming for dogs. And it's done over in an old factory building that it was abandoned down in, I think, Mr. Kadim's district, or in Lordship. It's down far.
I could actually speak on
Ms.
it.
Fonda has stayed, though, from work for an extended amount of time today to be able to speak at this meeting, and I hope that we can recognize her, because she's here to explain why 100% for 2 years, what is happening, and what those structures mean.
Okay. Thank you. Would you like Ms. Fonda to be recognized?
Yes?
I'm sorry, the mayor has a question first, if I may.
Yeah, sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to the chair, as to what the company does, it sounds like it's a
Doggy
daycare
spa.
for
Doggy daycare.
the doggy daycare,
Or
okay?
play
And
facility.
I heard a spa maybe, and they do boarding.
Doggy.
It's like playland for dogs.
Do they pet the dogs there? Like, do they pet them and take care of them? And now, do they allow cats in this facility?
No,
No cats.
No cats allowed? So
Exactly.
cat people cannot go there unless they
No.
have a four-legged animal?
No.
What about birds and monkeys? Would they,
No.
because monkeys have tails, and they, okay, I understand, so it's just a dog
Doggy
daycare?
daycare.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, Mr. Farrington-Posner.
When I was on the zoning commission, this application was put in front of us, and it was unanimously approved by the zoning commission, and I also approved it. We heard a very extensive report on it, and from the owner of the property. And we thought that this was going to be a great addition to Stratford. There's a lot of excitement around it right now. This is a full-service doggy spa, including boarding. There's a vet there. It's an indoor dog park. Grooming, I mean, you name it. It's like an all-in-one for dogs. And so many people were so excited and so looking forward to it. And this was back when I was on zoning, and now I've been on the council for a year about. So this is something I would love to see finally move forward so we can get this place opened and just be another destination spot in Stratford, you know, for our furry friends. So I'd love to see us go forward.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Antezo?
I'd also like to comment on that. Evidently, the owners took a rather dilapidated building and rehabbed it.
Yep.
And the abatement was only on the rehabbing of the building, not the personal property therein. I just inform people of that.
Okay, now Ms. Fonda?
So basically, the abatement is about $7,200 for the 2 years. It's based on the current mill rate. So that's, the total is 7,200, not, it won't be 14,400. As stated, the building was redone. It was they've revitalized the building, redone it. They've put in $1.7 million into this project, plus their purchase. So they're into, a rehab of the town property of $2.4 million. They do therapy with dogs. They have a little retail shop, and basically everything that was said here. It's a fabulous facility, and they seem to be doing very well. It's a small amount, basically at this time. So, unless there's questions on any of the abatements.
Okay, Mr. Kadim?
Not really a question, it's just more for the record. So it's 7,200 for 2 years.
Yeah, roughly.
It's not each year,
Yeah,
so altogether.
72, depending on the mill rate.
Got it, thank you.
And one way to think about tax abatement, it's not about not collecting money now or giving something away. It's giving a reduction on the improvements, because they're still, whatever their assessment was as of October 1, 2015, will not change. We'll continue to get that for 16. It's the improvement above and beyond that we're adding for. So it's not abating anything we weren't get. It's a future benefit of a property. We're also going to be picking up that personal property from them, which is a substantial amount.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chase?
Yeah, just one question. The building and the land, the building, said that's owned by these people?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chairman,
I'd like to move the
I'd
question.
like to call the question.
Okay, all in favor of calling the question? Is there, I'm sorry, is there a second for calling the question? Seconded by Ms. Antezo. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm calling the question on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 9-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the town attorney's report. Mr. Hodgson.
Defer to Attorney Leclerc, who will report on some recent matters which were concluded in the town's favor.
Mr. Hodgson, we have a few matters to report to the council. The first is a matter handled by Attorney Florek, the Good Earth matter. The town resolved 3 separate issues with Good Earth Landscaping. First, the collection of back taxes
I'm
claimed by...
sorry, Mr. Leclerc, I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. Bad ears?
Noise. Hello?
Yeah, that's much better.
Yes.
And speak up.
We have several matters to report on. The first is a matter handled by Attorney Florek. It involves Good Earth Landscaping. 3 matters were resolved: collection of back taxes claimed by the town. Number 2, resolution of Good Earth's claim for exemption of their property from taxation. And number 3, a resolution of the claim for monies owed by the town to Good Earth for services performed by Good Earth for the town. Second, Attorney Jackson and his office have resolved a matter involving Hawley Enterprises and IP Media Products. This was an eminent domain action where the town took a 22.4-acre parcel of land from Hawley for open space. The issue had to do with the value of that property as well as taxes owed on the property. The appellate court agreed with our argument and affirmed the judgment of the trial court. It ruled that the town was entitled to take back taxes in the amount of close to $54,000 out of the condemnation award that it had to give for the taking of the property because taxes were owed to the town. There were 2 matters handled by our office. One is Town of Stratford versus Wayne LeBlanc. This is another recent decision of the appellate court in favor of the town of Stratford, argued by Richard C. Bertola of my office. There were 2 municipal tax lien foreclosure actions, 50 Sunset Avenue and 11 Old South Avenue in Stratford. The appellate court agreed with our arguments that the denial of the plaintiff's motions to open the judgments were proper, and that the defendant property owner had no valid defense that was established to set aside the judgments of foreclosure, so the decision stood in favor of the town. And finally, Attorney Smith of my office was handling a matter, Isabel Vargas versus Town of Stratford. Ms. Vargas claimed she fell on a sidewalk outside of 305 Boston Avenue, had over $33,000 in medical bills, was claiming the town was negligent. in its maintenance of that sidewalk. She sued under the highway defect statute. We did significant investigation and got the town engineer's office involved and took the position that the sidewalk was actually not in Stratford, but in the city of Bridgeport, since it was sitting at the border. We filed a motion for summary judgment, and it was scheduled for argument, and just before we began argument, she voluntarily withdrew her claim as to the town of Stratford and withdrew the lawsuit. So the town is extricated from that matter. Also, at this time, Attorney Jackson would like to ask that 3 items be added to the agenda. Number 1, the Huntington Road sale. Number 2, the Beers Place sale. And number 3, a gift to the town from the Booth Trusts.
Okay, so should we do each one of those separately?
I would, Madam Chair.
Okay. On the is there a motion to add the Huntington Road property sale to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Chase, seconded by Mr. Llewellyn. All in favor of adding that to the agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Mr. Jackson?
Good evening. You may remember this was a discussion when Mr. Dugas came to the town and offered $200,000 for the parcel of land known as Tavern Rock and Huntington Road. We had another person who came in and offered a third of that. They came and gave both their pitches to the council. Mr. Alberg's client is the higher bidder. Mr. Knott's client is withdrawn. So the question for the council would be, would you like to sell the property known as Tavern Rock and Huntington Road for the sum of $200,000?
Can I just ask before you ask us that, should we be in executive session for
I
this?
think if this is an offer, I can say yes or no. I don't think there's going to be any negotiation per se.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question loudly and clearly then?
I don't believe there's any negotiation.
No, with your
Oh,
question.
The question would be that, given the information you'd heard in public session a number of months ago, does the council want to approve the sale of this parcel to this person for that sum?
And this sum was?
$200,000.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the sale?
Second.
Okay, and seconded by Mr. Farrington Posner. Discussion, Ms. Manis?
So the question was, has a survey of the land been done to find out what the actual value of that land is?
Are you saying a survey or an appraisal?
On a survey appraisal, whatever it's called.
There is a survey that gives us the meets and bounds. We have an appraisal. The appraised value is approximately a third of what his offer is. And he is aware of the fact he's offering 3 times the appraised value.
He's aware of that.
His counsel was here. His counsel is aware of it. He basically said Mr. Dugas would like this property. There will be a conservation easement. It's incorporated into it, so it will stay as effectively what it is for all time. And he's very much aware of it. He's represented by counsel. And Mr. Alberg says he just wants the property.
Okay. Any other discussion? If being none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? That motion passes 9-0. Thank you very much for your work on that. It's exciting that we have land that will be conserved, that was purchased for a nice value from the town. And thank you for Mr. Dubus for his contribution. Okay. Next, Mr. Jackson?
The next one is the property at Beers Place. If you recall, this was one where the neighbor had come to us and come to the town and asked to have the town abandon the property to him. This parcel was taken for a tax foreclosure in, I believe, 1956. It is not much to be done with the parcel. We've contacting the adjoining neighbor on the other side, and they have no interest in the property. The town council, when we first discussed it, it basically said they would do that as long as the buyer took any of the engineering costs. There's going to be a conservation easement on it. We need to figure out the extent of that. They basically, in the contract, said they would accept it, but they wanted to limit the cost to $500. I would ask the council, if they so choose, to approve the contract, and then I can get a better idea from Mr. Casey what any of the easements or such would cost to get a better idea to the buyer. At least we can go to the buyer and say, okay, here's what's involved, and if he wants to buy it for $1, he would then be able to buy it. It would go back in the tax rolls.
Okay, is there a motion to, for one of these options? Does somebody want to make a motion on one of these 3 options that have been presented to us?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Which option? Before you do that, Mr.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Can we get into, I guess I want to get into discussion about this.
Yeah. Mr. Farrington Posner, before you do that, can I just ask about the conservation easement, why this, again, remind us why this is needed. It looks like there needs to be the town needs to have an option to deal with this stream in the future if it needs to be dealt with?
Yeah, if you look at the page, paragraph 37, we're going to add into a conservation easement. The concern is that we're going to abandon this property to the buyer. We didn't want to find out he then knocks down his house and builds two. His intent has always been to add it to his parcel to make his land larger, not to make it into a building lot. There might be a stream or something running underground under this lot, and the idea would be to make sure that whatever the town easements need to be added into that were incorporated into it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for option 1.
Okay?
And
Okay, so the resolution is that if the town council chooses to sell the subject lot 26 to one or both abutting property owners, the sale price should be sure to cover all costs incurred by the town to secure a conservation easement to preserve the wooded lot and prevent any future development. By securing a conservation easement, the town reserves the opportunity to return the channelized stream to its natural state if it so chooses, thus improving stormwater management and the town's environmental impact. And that was seconded by Ms. Manis. Okay, now discussion.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, I just have a question here, because I've read over this contract, because I actually am the one who gave it to Mr. Aquiles.
Yes.
And it says here that the sale price is $1, not to exceed $500, and I know he did sign this contract. Is there going to be any more costs incurred after that?
Well, if the council voted to sell it, I was going to go talk to Mr. Casey, the town engineer, and get an idea of what economic costs would be involved in getting the conservation easements. If we have to get, for instance, if the town has to hire a survey or anything else, and they just wanted to limit the cost, so he wasn't signing on for an unconditional cost. So his attorney said, all right, get approval to sell it, let's get an idea of the values. If it's $1,500, he might still do it. He just didn't want to sign on for an unlimited amount. And the idea was to go get your approval to sell, go get some actual costs so that he covers the costs of the town, and then he can choose to buy it or not.
Okay. I'm just asking that because I'm seeing here it says total $1 and any other costs incurred by the seller, including but not limited to legal fees, engineering costs, and other similar or like charges as may be determined by the seller. Such costs not to exceed $500.
I'm sorry, can I just be clear that what we're discussing is the broader resolution, not necessarily that contract. The contract will be worked on later.
Okay.
But it's the idea that we would be selling it with the costs being covered by the buyer.
Okay, what I want to make sure, I guess, is that the buyer's aware. You had just said something, well, if it's $1,500,
Well, so
because
what-
I see it signed. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
They added, you can see that's in handwriting, that's why they added it. And the idea would be, if the council so decided to enter into a contract to sell the property, I would then calculate with the town engineer's office what, if anything, would be the cost of putting the conservation easements on the property. I would then get a cost for the buyer. If the buyer wanted to absorb that cost, we could then go through with the sale. I don't know whether the town engineer has a survey or whether he requires one. I don't know whether he needs a title search. I don't know what other costs are out there. And we'd said, look, whatever the costs are, and they said, well, so it would be a negotiation. If I come back and find out the costs are higher, I just want to make sure the town's costs are covered. The idea is to give it to them for $1, but not.
And you're working with the buyer's
Peter Kaiser is his attorney, and I'm working with him,
Okay.
and they're aware we're here tonight.
and they're aware of everything. Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Mr. Chase?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'd like to move the question.
Excuse
Okay.
me, I never got one of those papers to look through the contract. I didn't get one of those. It wasn't in my-
Okay, there's a second to move the question. All
Second.
in favor of moving the
Second.
question?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I guess I'm opposed, but, Okay, but that passes 8-1, so all in favor of this option 1 here, the resolution as stated, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion passes 8-1. That passes. The next item, Mr. Jackson?
The next item is I was contacted by the trustees of the David Booth and Stephen Booth Trusts, and you all know that as Booth Park. And what had happened was, the proposal was that the town, the Booth brothers devised the buildings and the land to the town some years ago. However, they never conveyed the interior personal property, whatever may be in there. They said that they have an insurance appraisal from 2009 showing the tangible personal property at $875,000. They would sell it to the town for $1, but the town, after the sale, would be responsible for the care and upkeep of the property. The trustees believe in the best interest of all the parties involved if the trust no longer own the tangibles located at the park. The town is in the best position to responsibly take care of the storage, display, preservation, and security of the tangibles on a day-to-day basis. So the idea would be they would like to sell whatever the personal property is within the Booth Park buildings for $1.
Okay, is there a motion for that?
Madam Chairman, I would make a motion that we refer this to the Booth Park Committee for them to look over it. I'm not aware that a number of the interested parties at the park, including the Friends of Booth and some of the other groups, are aware of this. It may be a great idea, but I would feel more comfortable if they took the opportunity to look this over.
Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Mr. Harden. All in favor of, discussion?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chase.
I want to make sure this gets over to them ASAP. What is the procedure or process? Does the clerk send this over to the chairman? Okay, thank you.
And when is your next meeting?
I believe it's this Wednesday, it's the last Wednesday.
Same as Chase, yeah. Okay. Okay, that would follow our normal procedures of having the more specialized committees and commissions deal with things and then have a recommendation to council. Ms. Manis?
I'd also like clarification, maybe you can give it to me, of the personal property that the Booth Park Commission would assume. Are they required to upkeep it? Are they allowed, if things are broken, are they allowed to throw them out? Like, because this is all historic property, like, are there conditions on this sale?
I have not seen that. This is just an offer, so I'd have to see an actual agreement once we got to that. My understanding would be, the personal property would be turned over to the town for preservation, i.e., if something was broken, they would dispose of it if it couldn't be repaired. They're just saying the trust doesn't want to undertake the obligation of insuring it, or their point to me when I talked to them was that we have access to the buildings, we go in and out, the trustees don't see it, don't have anything to do with it. My guess is the Booth Park people would care for it and do what they've probably been doing up to this point.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Chase?
Yeah, maybe I can help you out. The Booth Park Commission and the Friends of Booth Park over the years have conducted an inventory of all of the items in the park. As a side note, when it was originally willed to the town, there wasn't an inventory of what was actually in those buildings. It took a number of years for the Friends of Booth to put together the inventory. That has been put together, and they have been taking care of the items ever since.
I think it'd probably be no different than what the town does now, except the town would have ownership, whereas right now, it's technically owned by the trust. The trust is saying the town would just care for it in perpetuity the way they have been for however many years.
I just want to make sure we're not on the hook to restore things or...
Actually, I think the trustee's looking the other way around. I think the trustees are looking at it as we're caring for it now, and they have the obligation. They'd rather the obligation and the possession of it be in one place.
Got it.
So the town would have to insure it or whatever they do, but they'd have to probably do exactly what they're doing.
Okay, the motion, though, is to refer this to the Booth Park Commission.
The best motion.
Okay, all in favor of referring this to the Booth Park Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes 9-0. Very good. Are there Is there anything else to the town attorney's report? Okay, are there any questions to the town attorney? Yes, Mr. Kadim?
Hello, guys. How y'all doing? Good job y'all been doing thus far. I had a question, though, about the Ethics Committee vote. When it was put together, I voted yes. But I recognized that it didn't represent the demographic of the whole town. To rescind that as a no, how do you proceed?
Okay, one of the town attorneys can respond to that?
Right?
Was there an ethics committee vote
Yes.
recently?
This was a couple of months ago, I believe.
And what's your question?
I voted yes, but I wanted to vote no because it didn't represent the town.
I suppose you could go to the ethics committee and you can, I suppose you can go to the ethics committee at their next meeting and ask that it be on the agenda and say you want to change your vote.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
So
sorry?
now it can be handled here, though.
point of information.
Mr. Chase?
That's why I'm asking.
Madam Chairman,
What are you talking about?
Mr.
Somebody
Kadim
here
is
at
on
the
the
council
Ethics
meeting.
It's
Commission?
at the council
No.
meeting.
No.
Go ahead, I'm
Are
sorry,
you
go
talking
ahead.
about a vote you made at the council meeting?
Yes,
Councilman Kadim?
yes,
Oh,
And you want to change your vote on an item that was on this
correct.
council? You can't at this point because it's too late to reconsider the item at this point if it was
No
several
problem.
meetings
Thank
ago.
you
So
very
you're,
much. Just
that's
wanted to
canceled.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions to the town attorney? Okay. I just have one question. Do you know how much you saved the town in potential liabilities with the items in your report in total?
Well, it's hard to quantify. It could be half
True.
$500,000 if you looked at the exposure to the damages,
Okay,
but significant amount.
okay, thank you. Good work. Okay, questions to mayor or staff? Mr. Kadim?
My question, first of all, it's good to see everybody. Everybody came back. Thank you, Yana, and also all your staff, all the hard work you guys do. I had a couple of questions just from knocking on doors about sweeping in the South End. It's like they told me when I called them down at Public Works, they said April we were on the list to get swept, and they swept in April. Right now, actually, I wasn't living there at the time, so of course I can't speak on that. So if they swept, they swept. But I've been getting people, since I've been knocking on doors, why don't they sweep as much? They sweep down that way versus above Barnum. And I've seen trucks up there after April sweeping. So I just want to understand, what is the rotation? Do we get to get it one swept a year? I mean, garbage is out there all the time, debris from the sand, from the snow and so forth, all these different things that are going on. Even when garbage is being picked up, some debris sometimes is left on the road. How often do you get on the rotation to get sweeping down that way? How we do that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I can check with Public Works and get back to you on that.
I mean, even if you just ask them to come on down and start sweeping, you don't even have to give it back with an answer. Just have them come down and do, sweep it up a little bit, clean it up a little bit. That'll be great.
Okay.
And also one of the constituents that's been living on Wooden Road in Sedgwick on the corner there, house, he been there for over 30 years. And he was asking, he's been trying to get a curb, once you turn onto Sedgwick, that's the side of his house. The curb been broke for I don't know how long. He'd like that repaired, as well as his driveway. When they was cutting down the tree, they had the cherry picker in there, and it cracked his part of the sidewalk. But not his driveway, but the sidewalk itself, which is the town sidewalk. He was asking, so long he's been calling saying that he needed that fixed, and it never was done. Is there any way we can expedite it or talk to someone to get this
Do
moving?
you have a property address or a name on the property?
I didn't bring it with me, but I will give it to you.
Okay.
Yes, I will. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Farrington-Posner?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. How are you today?
Good.
I just wanted to let you know at our last Longbrook Park Commission meeting, we were discussing the conditions of Longbrook Park, including the abundance of garbage and just garbage and trash all around within the lake. Excuse me, outside around the park and all. We've come up to the conclusion that we're going to do a community-wide cleanup of Longbrook Park on October 7th, and it's being sponsored by the Longbrook Park Commission. I'd like to know if there's any assistance your administration or your office can give to the Longbrook Park Commission for that Saturday morning. We're going to be starting at 8 o'clock, and we're going to be pretty much going until we're done. Is there any assistance you can offer to the Longbrook Park Commission and the community that will be cleaning up that day?
Yeah, I know when there's community cleanups, at times Public Works will help distribute bags for bring debris in and clean up, but let me check with Public Works, and who would be the point of contact for that cleanup?
You can contact me directly.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
you bet.
Bill? Anybody? Okay, Ms. Manis?
Two questions. One is, could there be, I want to put this on record, an improved communication for bringing forward issues as we see them in the district? So I email Public Works, I email Mr. Timniak, I email Ms. Beto about trees or roads or whatever it is. I'm wondering if we couldn't use like Google form and a link like counselors could have, so then it just goes onto an Excel spreadsheet and people can see like as they come in, and then they can be time-stamped what time they come in. We do that in my school, like if I have repair requests, that's what my teachers do for me, and it really works. I feel like sometimes we just send emails and everybody's email boxes are full, so I'm just suggesting that that might be a way to improve getting things addressed and working on that, or if we could have some way of doing that. I know we used to have the one where you could take a picture and you could send it. There was like an online kind of thing. I don't know if that's still working. Do we have anything like that anymore, or is that?
No, but I get all the complaints from Bridgeport that was sent to my email. That's why I'm
Right.
laughing, but I get all Bridgeport's complaints.
Right.
So it's not a perfect system. I've reached out to all of you before and said if you have an issue in your district, please contact my office. That communication is still open and available, so avail yourselves of it while I'm here. But no, that's something to look into, and, you know, obviously we want to resolve issues as fast as possible.
Google form is free and it's just a link. The second thing is the National March for Solidarity, National March for Peace, National Solidarity March for Peace. It's happening October 14th nationwide. I've been approached to have, well, I've been talking to the organizers at the national level to have Stratford and Milford and Bridgeport are also interested in being locations. And I wanted to know how to go about having the permits for us to be a location. It wouldn't be hundreds of people. It would just be for Stratford. Rather than us walk to Milford to go do it there or go to Bridgeport and do it there, I'd rather have it in town and have it be organized here with our own people. So how would I go about a permit for that? Is that police? Because I went to zoning and they were like, that's not us. So how do you get a permit for something like that or permission to do it?
Where do you want to do it? In town?
It doesn't matter to me. It's just in a location where we can just walk. We might, you know, I would love to be able to walk across the Devon Bridge, but I don't know if that's feasible. Like, I want to talk to public safety, find out what's the safest way to do it, and to be organized about it, and also not to butt up with other things that are happening in town that might, you know.
So there's a couple of things. Maybe a little bit more information about the organization and the mission of what you're trying to do, but more importantly, where you want to march and where you want to gather. I mean, is there going to be a final stop where you're going to have speakers or a banner, or, you know, give us some kind of scope to what you want to do.
Right.
To the mission, and then contact us. You can contact me or Chris Timniak, and we'll direct you to the different departments that need to be notified so you have the permits in place.
Okay.
All right, is that fair enough?
Yeah, it has to be sponsored by someone.
Okay.
And it's sponsored, I reached out to them, but it's happening in major cities across the country at the same time. They moved it from the 7th, which it was going to be, to now the 14th. And it would be a really great thing, and it would be a really great thing to put Stratford on that list of towns and cities that are doing this, because it's happening everywhere. So I thought it'd be kind of neat.
Could you be more specific what this March for Peace is?
It's the National Solidarity March for Peace. It's
Where?
peace in the United States and across the world. It's just a national, it's a national movement to kind of say, things Mr. Harden was talking about, we're going to be kind to each other, we're walking for peace, nonviolence, this whole idea of it's a unified mission of everybody at one point in time on one day kind of saying, we're all going to do the right thing today, and we're going to, you know, be good about stuff. And I think that, I don't know, I think it's worthwhile.
No, I got you. I got the answer.
I think it's worthwhile to just
We're
have
back to the
Stratford-
60s.
Yeah, to have Stratford be recognized on that list of people. To have Stratford be recognized on that list is an honor, and to have them even consider us as viable, I thought was really neat, because it'd be national recognition that we would be You know, this is happening right in your area. I think the closest one to us right now is New York City. But I know Bridgeport is talking about it, Milford's talking about it. There's a whole bunch of towns around us, but I'd rather give something to our people here to engage in that. So I will reach out. I have the letter from the organizers and things like that.
Okay, I have a few questions for you or your staff. Can you, the Stratford Army Engine Plant project, what I had heard was that the remediation may not begin until 2019? Can you talk more about that meeting and what was learned in the Stratford Army Engine Plant?
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers had laid out a timeline for what they want to accomplish and what they want to do. The Army Corps of Engineers is brought in by the Army or the Department of Defense. Unfortunately, the individual that was working with the Army Corps of Engineers, Mike Keegan, had passed away in his office, and it was reassigned to a different person within the department. The Army Corps has decided to take a different path. They're applying a federal process called CERCLA to the plant. You are correct in your statement. By the time they're done with their analysis and testing and feasibility studies and vetting and all that they like to do, they're looking at a timeline of around May of 2019. That is before it even goes out to bid. Once it goes out to bid for a contract, you're looking at a remediation time frame depending upon the process they select and the quantities that they want remediated and the type of mitigation that they deem fit, and also the refurbishment of the replenishment of material taken out. You're looking at anywhere from 1 to potentially 3 years, depending on the permitting process, weather conditions, so forth. So you're looking at potentially, under the current process that the Army Corps of Engineers has taken, a 5-year window just to get the mudflats cleaned and the site prepared for redevelopment. So with that being said, there's a lot going on in other areas. We've spoken to the developer, Point Stratford Redevelopment. They're obviously concerned about the timeline. They've already spent 5 years in money to get this to where it is. The town has been very forthright and welcoming as far as approving zoning. The state of Connecticut passed tax incremental financing. When I was in the legislature, I was able to get enterprise zone, defense zone benefits for the site that are similar to enterprise zone benefits. So there has been some progress made in that site as far as preparing it for redevelopment. We thought we were making progress a few years back between the Army and the state deep, and that seemed to come to somewhat of a standstill based upon the state's requirement of the amount that they wanted removed versus what the Army was willing to remove. However, the Army has stepped up and has offered to pay for remediation of the mudflats, anywhere in the range of up to $30 to $50 million, which they hadn't before in the past. So the Army has stepped up with significant funds to clean up the mudflats. What's in dispute is the amount and the area to be remediated, and that's why the Army brought an Army Corps kind of as a third party to help resolve the deadlock between the state and the federal government. With that being said, there is still a lot going on. There has been interest in that site. I know the developer hasn't given up. They want to make this happen sooner than later. They also feel that the timeline is too long. So we continue to work with our federal and state agencies to get them to move.
You know, I'm the councilwoman from that district, and and as council chair, it was very important for me to have the Stratford Army Engine Plant on every single agenda of this council. So I think for about 14, 15 months, we've heard about mudflats. And this isn't addressed to you or your administration, but, you know, we are profoundly disappointed in this timeline, that this timeline would be, you know, it sounds like things wouldn't get off the ground till about 2021 or 2022. I mean, I don't even like saying those years. Is there, you know, so far we've been thinking about that as one large entity, but surely some of the parts of that property, not all of them were contaminated. Is it possible at this point, and maybe we need to have a community conversation on the Stratford Army Engine Plant, similar to what we did with Shakespeare, at the library where everybody can see what has happened and what the plan is here. But is there any way to at least get some of that property? We have large parking lots that probably, they may not have suffered the environmental degradation that the other parts of the plant did, but is there any way to get at least a portion of that property back onto the tax rolls?
We've tried, and the Army wants to convey the entire piece as opposed to doing it piecemeal. I agree with you. It would make sense to develop some of those portions earlier to get them on the tax rolls. It makes complete sense. However, when you're dealing with the federal government, particularly the Army, complete sense doesn't always seem to be the balancing factor that's going to make sense. And when I say that, it has been a very frustrating process.
I'm sure.
It's difficult enough to deal with one agency, whether it's state or federal, but when you have two, and of course local, but when you have the two not agreeing with each other, both trying to get to the same place, and it comes down to dollars and cents and process, it's a little disturbing. And, we've lost our patience. We are making a final push to try to get this going. I know the developer still wants to move forward. He's had interest and letters of intent from people that want to develop that site. He shares the same vision that we do, that, in my opinion, the most important thing this town should have is access to the waterfront. We haven't had access to that waterfront in a very long time, really never at all. But that would be connected to our greenway, which would connect to the beach, so the potential is fantastic. I envision that hopefully being a destination in town and, kind of revitalizing that area where not only people from Stratford would go, but outside people would come and visit, live, work, and play. The developer is also committed to that. I think the potential is there. Others agree with it. It's just coming down to coming up with a plan. We will continue to push and advocate to get that site developed and get our developer moving on it. I know they want to move on it. The Government Service Administration, the GSA, did select them and vetted them. They're serious about the development plan, and I'm just glad that they're willing to be patient and also be diligent and pressing to make sure that this development happens.
The Army, you said that the Army would pay 30 to 50 million in remediation. What is the estimate of the total remediation cost?
Well, I'm going to sound like an attorney when I say this. It depends. And the main site where the land is has a chromium plume underneath it. And the developer feels as though they can probably cap that on site and remediate on site with just a cap. As complicated as that may be, if they demo the buildings, they feel as though they can get some value out of demolition materials to help pay for that cap. Also, the material that they dredge from the mud flats, they can't use that to build on. However, they might be able to use it to shore up a berm or, like a better term, like a dike area that's going to raise the site up. So they do want to raise the site up so that it's out of a flood zone, which is going to be a significant elevation of the site, the property, to ensure that, that flooding does not occur. But it's really the mud flats that is the costly factor in this, as far as how they're going to dredge it, what type of process they're going to use, and where they're going to dispose of material.
I guess my question is, with that $30 to $50 million, will that cover it all, or is that just a fraction of the cost?
We don't know
that-
yet. We don't know
Yeah.
yet. It's a very good question. We don't know yet, only because it depends on the quantity of the process. That's beginning. What DEEP wants the developer to do, or actually the Army to do, is significantly more expensive, and it could go upwards to $200 to $300 million. That's where the Army is saying, wait a minute, we're willing to take the bad stuff out and do remediation. However, the state standards are fairly significant and far-reaching, and part of the Army's concern is whatever they do in Connecticut is setting precedent throughout the rest of the nation, and we have a very regulated state in regards to environmental protection. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's the environment or state we live in right now. They require a lot, and they're asking the Army to do a lot. The Army is willing to do their part. However, cost is a factor, and they're trying to do their best. And that's the discussions that are being had right now between the state and the Army.
Okay, just on this topic. Okay, Ms. Manis?
You mentioned the rise that the developers are planning. When I look at the coastal resiliency plan and the FEMA maps, and we're looking at Houston, right now that's underwater still, I'm concerned that the geography in that area is changing. there are parts of Lordship, literally Lordship looks like an island on some maps in less than 20 years from now. And that the sea level is rising, whether we believe in climate change or whatever, but that's what the maps and the imaging looks like. So with this property coming on board, my concern is that this has been going on for like over 30 years, right? So we've been working on this, and that, are those maps being updated? Are they being looked at again in response to all this new information that's coming out with coastal resiliency and FEMA? And because we all know that federal government agencies don't communicate with each other, right? And then on top of it, is it even going to be a feasible project by 2022 when we're staring down the barrel of literally an island and Lordship being cut off, like in some of those maps, literally being cut off from Stratford completely, and being, that whole center part. So has that ever come up in discussions with them?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the greater plan, I mean, the fact is that any development that's going to be put there is going to be elevated and out of the flood zone. So I think that's a good start. And as far as the roads being flooded, we haven't had a major incident where Main Street's been flooded since the airport was done. So that was a big improvement that we're able to see. But yeah, it's a concern we have, and it goes back to the sewage treatment plant. I was always concerned about the berm being breached to a storm, because if we lose the plant, that'll be an issue. But that's something for future councils and WPCA's to look at. They are considering that. So that's why they want to make the dike higher. They want to elevate it so it doesn't flood not only the development, but that surrounding area. So that's a good thing.
So they're building up for like 50 years with regard
Probably
to
longer
Whatever
than
flood,
that.
yeah, whatever the flood map indicates there, they're going to
Yeah.
prepare for that. And realizing that the river's an active area and is subject to a storm surge.
right.
Forbid we get another
I'm just
hurricane.
concerned that the area that they've elevated to
Yep,
in 20 years is going to be the
I-
area that floods.
hopefully not.
I'm sure they're looking at those maps too.
Thanks.
Ms. Antezzo?
I have a question about remediation. From what I understand, the principal focus of the remediation now is the mud flats. Is that correct?
That's the bone of contention between the Army and the state.
Okay. Now, the remaining land part of it, has that been extensively tested?
Yes,
It has been.
yes.
And what have they come up with as far as
Well, you're
what
bringing up,
needs to be remediated there?
well, there is a chromium plume that we're aware of that's underneath the facility. All I can tell you is, even with the testing they've done, when they start taking buildings down and removing foundations and structures that have been there, before 1930, they may find some other things. And, that happened to us at Contract Plating, and that's a much smaller site. This is a large tract land. It's approximately 77 acres. It's been utilized for heavy manufacturing for years. And back then they dumped things in the soil because they didn't think about what they were doing to the environment. They have a pretty good idea what's there. There's been a tremendous amount of testing. They feel as though they can remediate the land and take care of that section with a cap. It's really the mud flats that gets a little more complicated. They've found PCBs and some bad things out in the mud flats that they want to take care of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. The other question I had was the coastal remediation grant for WPCA, was that put in? Do you know?
I'm unaware of that.
Okay, we had approved that that would be put in. I just want to make sure
Okay.
it went in. Okay, I think having a community conversation on Stratford Army Engine Plan at this point would be called for, so I'll work with Carol in planning that and getting all the actors around the table for that. Okay, yes.
Madam Chairman, just
Mr. Chase.
in line with that, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Are you getting any assistance from Senators Blumenthal, Murphy, or Congresswoman DeLauro on this?
Yes, we have. They've all been advocates for the town of Stratford. They've been very responsive in doing joint letters and support, and Congresswoman DeLauro has been a very strong advocate for the redevelopment of the Army engine plant, more so than you probably imagine. So if anyone wants this cleaned up, it's Congresswoman DeLauro. She's been
Thank you.
very strongly pressing the Army and now the Army Corps of Engineers to come up with a solution to get this cleaned up and back on the tax rolls. Yep.
Okay, Ms. Manis?
I just want to share that last year, the Ella Grosso Leadership Luncheon, they had like hundreds of people, and she specifically said, stuff's going to happen in Stratford. And I was like, what's happening? And she says, we're getting that plant cleaned up. And I went and talked to her afterward, and she really put herself out there. And she had a conversation a year ago next week regarding cleanup and remediation. And when I see her this weekend, I'm going to say, it was a year ago, what's going on? And she's desperately, her mom just passed, but I think she's desperately engaged in this. She wants this for Stratford. So many people that even just hearing our story want this for Stratford. They can't believe it has gone on this long.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Unless there are any objections, the next thing I'd like to, is there a motion to table 7.1, the appointment to the Arts Commission alternate? Mr. Chase?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes 9-0. I'd like to keep the cost of dog park on the table. We haven't passed the CIP. The renaming of a portion of Stratford Avenue to Selby's Pond Road. On your, yes, Mr. Llewellyn?
Motion to take it off the table?
Is there a second to take that off the table? All in favor of taking that off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, it's off the table. That passes 9-0. Mr. Chase?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, and I'll include this as as an amendment to what's listed on the agenda, and that would be the renaming of a portion of Stratford Avenue to Selby's, and that would be the amendment, Selby plural, S-E-L-B-Y-S, Pond Road, which was placed on the table. Resolved that the remaining portion of the Stratford Avenue to Selby's Pond Road be and is hereby approved pending the town attorney's composition of the prerequisites and obligations of the property owners. Resolved to rename the portion of the Stratford Avenue that was previously renamed to Bonds Dockway. That is the portion that runs from the intersection of Lockwood Avenue to Bonds Dock to be renamed Selby's, S-E-L-B-Y-S, Pond Road.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Farrington Posner. Is there discussion? Ms. Manis?
I'm an English teacher. Is there an apostrophe in this Selby's?
No,
No.
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 So we're clear, there's no apostrophe?
No apostrophe.
no
Is it grammatically incorrect, or is it
Characters
script-
called
it's,
extra on road signs.
Is it called Selby's Pond?
Yes.
That's what it's called,
Selby's
Selby's Pond.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There is a sign by the pond that says Selby's Pond with no apostrophe
All right.
currently.
I'm with you.
Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 9-0. There are tabled ordinances and resolutions I'd like to keep on the table, so let's go to, if
Madam
there,
Chair, that was 8-0.
I'm sorry, 8-0. Thank you for that correction. That passed 8-0, not 9-0. Mr. Kadim is not present. Okay? So the 7.3.1 is tabled. We're going to keep that on the table. 7.3.2 is tabled. We're going to keep that on the table. I don't think there are any items on pages 4 and 5 to take off the table right now, so let's move on to the ordinances and resolution, which is page 6, item 8.1. This is a grant resolution. Is there a motion for this?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I would move that this be referred to the ordinance committee.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, this is 8.1.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Point 1, grant.
Do you take back your second?
Yeah, I'll
Mr.
take back my
Farrington
second,
Posner?
This is a grant for Health Department, whereas the Connecticut Department of Health is authorized and has made funds available in the amount of $34,395 to extend financial assistance to municipalities in the form of grants, and whereas funds under this grant will be used to support the continuation of the next 3 years of the town of Stratford's based health center.
School-based.
School-based health center, whereas it is both desirable and in the public interest that the town of Stratford execute a grant agreement with the Connecticut Department of Public Health to accept funding in connection with this project. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town council that it is cognizant of the town of Stratford grant application and contract to the Connecticut Department of Public Health for funds in the amount of $734,395 to implement a town-level school-based health center. That it hereby authorizes, directs, and empowers the mayor or his designee to execute and deliver such application in the name and on behalf of the town of Stratford, any and all applications and/or agreements, including amendments to or rescissions of such agreements, and that any and all related documents necessary to apply for and obtain funding from the Department of Public Health through the school-based health grant program. I so move, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Okay, that was seconded by Ms. Antezo. Okay, discussion? Ms. Manis?
Is there a specific location, or is this for all schools?
I would like to, for Andrea to speak about this, our health director.
Hi, Andrea Boyce-Vane, Director of Health. It is for the Worcester. Health Haven is the school-based health center that's at Worcester, and it is only at the one middle school.
Why was Worcester chosen?
It is I'm going to say 18-year program, and it was chosen back at the time because that was the highest feeder or school that had the highest free and reduced lunch rate. We would love to be able to do it at both middle schools, but we're already, this is represents, and this $734,000 is a 5-year grant.
Right.
And we've already, unfortunately, experienced a 25% cut.
I'm just going to put on the record that I'm very concerned regarding equity. Our school pathways program now does not follow this same pattern, and students who are being pathwayed in are spread out over our district. School-based health clinics are specifically a huge indicator for us of the socioeconomic condition of our community. And it's a big red flag for me to know that this is happening, but it's only happening in one place when our entire community is suffering. We need to expand this somehow, some way. I don't know if our delegation can get involved. This has to at least happen at both middle schools. This is where it's at, especially with the opioid epidemic and all of the substance abuse issues that are starting. I can't believe this isn't at both schools, and I can't believe it's not in all the elementary schools as well. They're starting to reach out because we're the lowest in our DIRG.
Well, we'd like to see it at the high school level as well.
Yeah. So how do we make that happen?
Okay,
Madam Chairman?
wait, I'm going to let her respond to that question.
I mean, it's about trying to, pull together a proposal to the state to, so this is about $144,000 that funds an APRN and a full-time social worker as well as a part-time social worker.
Okay.
Every school should have one.
I'm going to let Mr. Chase and then Mr. Mayor.
You said that this is a 5-year program? And then I think we need to amend the motion.
Perhaps, yeah, because the resolution, I believe, went forward, I'm pretty sure, because I corrected it to say that it was for, because it is misleading, but it's for 5 years. So it's approximately $144,879
It says
a year.
3 years in the motion.
So,
It says what?
what's on
Three.
our agenda is whereas funds under this agreement will be used to support the continuation for the next 3 years.
3 years.
But it's already been funded for the first 2?
No. This is a new grant period, so it will be
Madam
for
Chairman,
5
I think we need
years.
to make an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
I'm not going to repeat the whole motion.
Praise the Lord.
But
The second whereas should read, whereas the funds under the grant will be used to support the continuation for the next 5 years of the Town of Stratford School-Based Health Center.
Okay, is there a second for that amendment? Okay, seconded by Mr. Young. Okay, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes 9-0. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the amendment.
Thank you.
Any other discussion about the amendment? Okay. Yes.
This is to Councilwoman Manis. I've been involved with the school-based health center at Worcester School for a long time.
Yeah.
And even when I was a legislator, there's always been concerns about cuts to the grant program. I'm thankful that we are able to have at least one, given the current climate that we are in economically and with the cuts. This has proved to be a useful resource within the school. It'd be nice to have a lot of things. We're lucky to have one. So, Andrea, thank you for moving this grant forward to at least keep the one.
Right.
But I know years ago, we were worried about funding. This is nothing new. We're very fortunate to have funding for this, at least in one middle school, as opposed to not having any. So, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, Mr. Hardin?
I just want to say one more thing. I appreciate the health department and all your hard work that you do. We've seen you up here numerous times, you know, canvassing for the things that you need for your department. And I think you're one out of 3 departments that I fairly know that really work hard to push the bar to do what's right for the community and the students. And again, as the mayor said, we would like to see this in other schools, but I'm very proud to have it, at least in this town. And maybe in the near future, when time goes by, we can work to do it if we're still all here. So again, I appreciate all your hard work and, you know, the will that you have to look for grants and seek for things that we really need in this community. So your work doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a question. So this grant is to the town, and does the town have the ability to determine how to use the funds once it goes to the town? Or is it going to?
Yes.
Or is it?
We identify a budget, and if we move from that budget, we have to submit a budget revision.
But even within the budget, so for example, could that part-time social worker be at Flood? Or is this only, is the proposal for Worcester?
Yes, because you're licensed at Worcester to
Okay.
do work at Worcester. Yeah, so
Okay.
you have to go through fairly large bureaucratic hoops to be able to get licensed in
Okay.
a particular facility.
Okay, thank you. And I just have to say, this program, they seem to know much more about concussions and concussion treatment than some physicians at Yale University. Anyway, from experience of a parent. Okay, all in favor of, I forget if we voted on this, all in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion passes 9-0. Brian, had we already voted on the amendment? Yes, we had. Okay, I'm sorry, losing my mind. Okay, the authorization to create a special revenue fund is actually on the agenda a bit incorrectly. This should be on the agenda to refer to ordinance. Okay, there should be a referral to the ordinance committee. Is there a motion to refer this to
So
ordinance?
moved.
Okay, Mr. Farrington-Posner, seconded by Mr. Kadim. Discussion? Okay, all in favor of forwarding this to ordinance? Say
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes 9-0. 8.3, it's similar. Mr.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion to send item 8.3, authorization to create a special revenue fund for revaluation fund. Make a motion to send that to ordinance.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Chase. Discussion, all in favor? say
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that motion passes 9-0. And 8.4, this is a police special revenue fund.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chase, Chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Authorization to create a special revenue fund, RE Police Special Revenue Fund, sponsored by the Town Council. I would move referral to the ordinance committee.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kadim. All in, discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 9-0. We're on 8.5, which is a FEMA grant point security for ATV. Did the administration want this tabled?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
I would move that 8.5 FEMA grant report security for all terrain vehicles be tabled.
Okay, is there a second for tabling this? Seconded by Mr. Hardin. All in favor of tabling this, say aye.
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 All, okay, the motion passes 9-0. The FEMA grant, assistance to firefighters, self-contained breathing apparatus recharge station. Mr. Hardin, would you like to make the motion for this, on 8.6, page 8.
8.6, it says, whereas I would like to make a motion to assist the firefighters with self-contained breathing apparatus, recharge stations. Whereas the United States Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Fire Administration, is authorized to extend financial assistance to multiple fatalities in the form of grants that have been made funds. About that. Available to the town through 2016 Fire Assistance to the Firefighters Grant Program in the amount equal $59,091. And whereas the fund under the grant will be used to purchase self-contained breathing apparatus, scuba, recharge stations, whereas it is mandatory, cost shared of 10% of the total cost, project cost, equals to 909. And whereas both desirable and public interests, the town of Stratford execute the grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Fire Administration to accepting the funding connection with this project. Now, therefore, it will be resolved by the council that is cognizant of the town of Stratford, the grant application to the contract of the United Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Fire Administration to accept fund in the amount of $59,091, and that it is hereby authorized, directs the empowerment of the Mayor John A. Harkins of his designee to execute and deliver such application in the name and on the behalf of the town of Stratford, and any applications or agreements, including amendments or recessions of such agreement, and any of all related documents necessary to apply to obtain the funding from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Administration AFG grant program.
Okay, is there a second for that?
Second, Madam Chair.
Seconded by Mr. Chase. Okay, discussion. We have the fire chief here and the deputy chief. Do you have any questions for him? This does involve a match.
Madam Chairman, I move the question.
Okay, all in favor of moving the question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the
Aye.
motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0. Okay, 8.7, this is an ordinance prohibiting waste associated with natural gas and oil extraction. This is actually sponsored by Greg Can. Yes, Mr. Chase?
Madam Chairman, resolve that the first reading of the above ordinance be it is hereby dispensed with, copies thereof be previously furnished to each council member, and the same be adopted as the first reading, referred to the ordinance committee for public hearing. I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Antezo. Yes, discussion. Yes.
I'd like to recognize the efforts of Jennifer Badai on bringing this ordinance forward and championing it with both Representative Gresco she spoke with, but on her own. She has been a true champion for this, and I commend her efforts with this, and hope that as it goes to ordinance, we will use her as a resource. Thank you.
Okay.
Does she live in the district?
No? She lives
Okay.
in the Phillips District.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, that motion passes 9-0. It is now forwarded to the ordinance committee. This is, the next ordinance that can be referred to ordinances has to do with applicability of traffic laws. We don't need to read this. It is in our agendas. I didn't know here, I thought the whole town council would want to sponsor this. This came from the police department. Is that true? Okay, then
Yes.
can we list the sponsor of this as the entire town council? Okay, is there a motion to be made there to move this to ordinance? Yes.
I make a motion that we move 8.8, applicability of traffic laws, to the ordinance committee.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Farrington Posner. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion passes 9-0. Next one is prohibition on blocking the box. This has to do with gridlock, essentially blocking the box when you're driving. Anyway, is there a motion to move this to ordinance?
So move, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harden. All in favor of referring this to the ordinance committee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion passes 9-0. This appointment, I'd like to table. Is there a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Seconded by Ms. Manis. All in favor of tabling?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Wait, I didn't even announce that vote yet. That motion passes 9-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Before midnight?
Yes.
Okay, and there's a second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Wow.